effectively have 6 courses over a calendar year. And that's it. So 6, and the rates are variable by department, but they don't go much above 3. They don't, I don't think any go above $4,000 a class. But roughly a 3-unit class,
yeah.
right? So we have no way to know that there's parity among different people in different departments. The sole provider I was thinking of in the art department, I wouldn't use hers. I wouldn't use that as, because there was a great deal of fear there, and part of the fear was that because that's a fine arts, and oftentimes terminal degrees are MFAs, and there's a lot of working artists who would love to teach. Those are quite desirable positions to have, and there's lots of people who they perceive to just step in. So you don't want to rock the boat. You don't want to ask for a little bit more, even though you might be the sole provider for her family.
Yeah.
Like a couple of kids. You never know if the class is gonna go, if you're gonna have it. We met another instructor in exercise science, or she was running like this yoga or something, and she would love, as her kids are getting older, she'd love the opportunity for her kids to be able to come here as the tuition waiver, but they can't get that. I've known people that have been fired without, just like they came to check for classes and there were none there. Trying to think of other. I think those are the main ones. Is jobs, is ultimately job security, and the pay, because it is so. I mean, we make up, anywhere, roughly 51% of the teaching faculty on campus, and maybe more because the numbers are ambiguous. Because you could have somebody who's a dean and they have an administrative role, but they also teach a class. Right?
Yeah.
But and this is across all campuses, make up 51% of the teaching faculty, and are less than 1% of the operating budget.
Do you happen to have anywhere where like I could double check that number or have it like?
He'll definitely have those figures for you. Yeah. I mean, because a lot of it, I mean, you could double check. One way for you to verify would be to get. You'd have to do FOIA requests through the university. I mean, he's done it. You're trusting that his sources. He hasn't manipulated it in any way, but that's where it would come from, and that's where I got the numbers as well. It's like, you're like, holy cow, that's insane.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you want to mention? Anything you think I should look into, or am I forgetting? Any other people you think I should talk to besides Jesse?
I'd be curious. I mean, I think some of the things that that I found really, and I'm not sure the narrative you're. I'm trying to think of the narrative you might. I don't want to shape your narrative for you.
Yeah, of course.
And not that you're not a thinking person who's not going to shape her narrative. I find, in terms of issues around race and sex and gender, I think it's important to understand how unions, you're here talking to a white guy. The vast majority of folks are women that are often in these precarious positions. So unions help with that, help leveling out inequalities that we see there, especially when it comes to raising pay. We have folks who have come to Kent State as graduate students, who have then continued to be able to work in their department and maybe working towards masters or PhDs, and they've felt some intimidation in a general sense from Trump administration policies in ICE and deportation. Solidarity and unionization, I think, helps. It doesn't get rid of that problem, but it helps at least be another another community, another buffer that can be, another barrier that can be put in the way of those kinds of inequities and injustices. What else is? I mean, I didn't grow up. This is one thing. I'm from the West Coast originally and grew
Where
up.
from?
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we lived in Vancouver, and then we're actually from Northern California, and my wife's family had moved up there just before the crash, because they thought, oh, it's close to Portland, large industrial, might be able to find some work, because they were in their late 50s and 60s and going, shit, I'm not going to have a job kind of thing. Still didn't find one, but they still made a decent life for a while. So anyway, we moved there, and then essentially being an adjunct there was a number of colleges in the the Portland, Vancouver metro area that I could fly from Mount Hood and then over to Kaplan and then try to pick up. It was like, oh my God, we're driving all over again and like trying to save up money. And I was like, well, I'm gonna try a PhD because maybe that would be greater job security over time. And so we moved out here, and I'm still finishing up. I'm hoping to finish this summer and defend everything. But a lot of folks are like that too. Like I said, our foreign folks are like that, except they have the added anxiety of deportation. But this whole idea of union, it was a very foreign experience to me, and I thought, here in Ohio with steel working and that there'd be a great deal more at least understand, and I think there are. I mean, Kent State's largely a working class institution. The New York Times had a really cool little, I don't know what the hell you call it, but it was an interesting little usable graphic thing where you could like drop into school and it would show you the income percentages of the students who are there, which I thought was really interesting. So thinking all that, I always thought, hey, this would be a great, like labor and the understanding of that history. People would have a sense of that. I mean, you have what happened over in Lordstown recently with the closure of the plants there. And, we see the decimation of workers. But we also see, I think, a lot of hope too. I mean, think of all the stories you see of the K through 12, strikes throughout with West Virginia recently, and Oklahoma and Arizona, and I think there's some in Colorado, and so there's public sector workers going, hey, this is terrible, and we're not. I mean, I think something to emphasize for what it's worth is that adjunct instructors, I think, would want to say, like, this isn't here. Things that as our efforts become more visible, and if administration starts to care in any capacity, let's just say, oh, this is going to increase your tuition costs. This is going to be, and again, if and you can verify with Jesse, if we are 1% of the operating budget, but you can spend millions of dollars on a football team that nobody cares about, people come here for an education. We want to be able to provide them with that. Pay us what we can so that we can turn our attention, so we don't have to have 5 classes at 3 different campuses, and spend more quality time with. And if you want, I can find the articles as well. There's been a lot out recently too about how efficacious it is to have instructors who are full-time or have secure positions in teaching, in particular majors, to have the reuptake of those major, what do we call it? So majors don't die out effectively. The more tenure or full-time or secure positions you have of people teaching those, the more likely students are to track and fulfill that major, particularly in STEM.
Oh, really?
Which was really interesting. Yeah. But adjuncts, they're teachers at heart. They're dedicated folks who, you know, care about their students, and there's quite a mix of folks. That's part of the challenge to organizing, I think, is you know, seeing that we're all in this together, regardless if this is somebody who's retired and come back to teach because they enjoy it, or somebody who teaches because this is what they love, but they also need it for, you know, just basic survival.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. Other things you can think of?
Sure, that's just kind of my, like, usually that's like my last question, is just leaving it open-ended.
Sure, yeah.
Because, you know, you never know what I'm missing or whatever.
Yeah.
So, I'm really intrigued by what I've learned. Do you happen to know, I'm sure, again, Jesse would know, but do you happen to know how long this effort has been in place at Kent State?
I mean, there's been efforts going back to the 90s.
Well.
But you know, again, you can't say that it's all this. It's not, I wouldn't say it's the same.
Yeah.
Right, but at least to bring attention to the issue, my understanding is that this has been a couple, you know, again, at least since a little bit before the 2016 election. But that, you know, to not despair and think, oh my God, some people go, oh, we want this now. Well, of course, now would be great, but back to that, you know, if we went with half the people assessed or less, or even 3/4, that's if you're making the claim that this is democracy in the workplace, and you're not satisfying that by actually demonstrating, hey, we did talk to, you know, 90% of the people, and this is what we think. That would be a bit disingenuous. So, you know, that it's a long and slow effort, I think is okay. I mean, you don't change institutions overnight. You don't build new culture out of whole cloth. You know, it's here. I mean, and you probably you're from Seattle, is that right? Yeah. And again, a fairly progressive town, or city and town.
Yeah.
You know, and I get people out here going, Kent's a hippie place, and I'm like,
I know. Everyone's like, oh, from outside Kent State, they're like, you go to the liberal school.
Right.
And I'm like, I guess to Ohioans, maybe.
Yeah, I'm like, yeah, you're not. I mean, yeah, I knew people like live on dirt floors, eat placenta, hippie, like, you know, that kind of like.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm like, we got a very different understanding.
Yeah, different definitions.
But all that's to say, I mean, you know, these are slow efforts. I mean, slow but methodical, and to do it well and to do it right means, you know, to take time. And people get certainly frustrated by that, and they think this is a liberal enclave. Gosh, it shouldn't be a problem. And I don't. Everything looks great in a slow building the foundation, laying it out. I mean, one thing I like about the steelworkers is it is, and if you look into union stuff, I mean, it's you have the union entity itself, but then it's made up of the workers, and they are very much more oriented to the unit, the people in the bargaining unit doing that organization work, right? That it comes from the ground up and not. Well, we came in here and now you have this, and then people go, why do we have you know, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
I mean, our clerical staff here on campus is, you know, all the secretaries that run everything, that make shit happen, because they're the ones who do. They're not unionized, you know, which would be a good thing for them. And again, in terms of pay, merit, raises, you know, not being exploited to stay after for hours and hours because it's scheduled